Hello, and welcome to Murph's Comic Corner. I am your comic connoisseur, Murph. Today, I am joined by Professor S. How are you doing today, Prof?
Well, I'm excellent, S. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. Today, we are talking about the the symbiote known as Carnage.
Oh,
his
yes.
history, his current state in the comics, and the fact that he has a part to play in the next Venom movie.
Excellent. In fact, we can't talk Carnage without talking Venom first. So
Exactly.
if you'd let me go way back in time, I'll tell you what happened in the 80s with Secret Wars.
Ooh.
May I?
Yes.
So the story began with a 12-run limited series, which was one of Marvel's first attempts at cross-series called Secret Wars.
Oh.
And in it, we had heroes and villains placed on the battle world where the Beyonder made them fight each other.
Heroes such as the Fantastic Four,
Absolutely.
Spider-Man, the Hulk,
The
Iron
X-Men.
Man.
Yep,
Yeah,
the
X-Men.
They were all there. Cap America, of course. He's always running the show. Well,
Yeah.
poor Spider-Man got his costume ripped, as he often does. And at the time, I remember reading it thinking, well, this is odd, but there was a costume-making machine in one of the Beyonder's pieces of equipment.
Oh, God.
And when he went in it, he thought of the costume he'd want, and he got a nice black costume. Now, that was fine, and they continued the story. But a few issues later, back in his regular series of Amazing Spider-Man, it turns out that the costume was alive.
Yep.
And an alien symbiote that we later became known as Venom. So somewhere along the line in the mid to late 80s, he got sick of the costume causing him to do weird things, so he got rid of it. And we all know what happened next.
Yep. Actually, he had Reed Richards help him get it off.
You were absolutely right, because it was afraid of sound. And he made a sound thing and put it in a little container to keep it out of trouble. A sound thing. Like a...
Yeah. Yeah. The Clintar, as we would much later find out that
Yes,
they are
much
called, have fears of the flame and noise.
Yeah, you would think that Reed would have used his son-in-law, or brother-in-law, sorry, Johnny Storm, to just put a little fire on it, but I guess they didn't want to burn Spidey.
The Reed nowadays would have no issue burning
I would agree.
Spidey. He's really more of a villain than a hero nowadays.
So the Venom personality began when Eddie Brock, a disgraced reporter, was lifting weights in his abandoned room, and this black creepy thing found him and said, "You don't like Spider-Man. I don't like Spider-Man. You don't like Peter Parker. I happen to know that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Let's team up."
Yep. And then one of the world's greatest villains was born.
And now Todd McFarlane did all the drawing back in the day, and he eventually got his own Spider-Man series. But his style is really the one that they still imitate to this day. He is the master of drawing the weird webs and the Venom symbiote, and it's all of its crazy forms.
Yep. Whenever I think of old Spider-Man art, I immediately think of Todd McFarlane's work.
He really did a great job there. So I remember the year being 1988 when Venom made his debut.
Yep.
So you can fact check me on that, but that's what I remember. Now it was about 1990. I'm going to be guessing here, but it was a couple years into the Venom story when he was imprisoned, and he had a cellmate named
Cletus Cassidy.
Yeah. And somehow the Venom symbiote decided to bud or make an offspring, and Carnage was born.
Yep. The symbiotes are actually asexually reproduced. So, what happened was that Venom, after coming back to Earth, because I'm pretty sure at one point I might be thinking of the Spider-Man animated series here, was sent to space.
Yes.
And once Venom came back, he found Eddie at the Ravencroft Asylum.
That sounds about right. I can't remember for sure.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I just remember that he had... Well, we have to take a minute to talk about his hair, because they added the character at the end credits of the Venom movie from last year, and I got to say, you can't talk about what they did for Woody Harrelson with that weird wig.
Yeah, the hair, not Venom. Cletus Cassidy always had curly red hair, from what I could tell, that until the 2010s.
So there are an awful lot of actors out there who they could have just either dyed their hair or gotten them to actually be redheaded actors. But
Yep.
no, we have Woody Harrelson.
My biggest problem isn't so much that it's Woody Harrelson in a wig. That is kind of disappointing. It's the fact that they gave him a ginger afro. That's
know.
that's the problem I have.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
So
no one needed a ginger
I
afro.
want to say Eric Larson was the artist at the time. He followed up after Todd McFarlane started his own series, and Eric drew a lot like Todd, so we can check that one too to be sure, comic book fans. But years later, and I have to admit also, I didn't collect much after the 90s. I took a break from comics for a while, and one of the comics that brought me back into the 2010s maybe or late 2000s was the New Avengers. And that was the first time I saw Carnage in a long time. He was part of the so Electro had freed a bunch of prisoners from the raft, and they were running around causing all kinds of trouble, and we were introduced to a new superhero who we didn't really know, was named the Sentry. And Bob Reynolds was in he had a long scraggly beard, and he was hanging out in a cell, and they got him loose, and the Carnage came in to cause all kinds of trouble, and he's like, I'm flying this guy to space. And that was the last we saw of Carnage for a long time.
Yep.
Ripped him out of this planet.
I totally forgot that Robert Reynolds was the reason why Carnage was in space.
Yes, wasn't that pretty cool trivia? And then Brian Michael Bendis wrote those, and he brought us into this whole backstory that maybe the Sentry was here all along, and we all forgot about him.
Yep, that was stuff. The 03 run.
So it was early 2000s.
Yep.
Gosh, boy, am I...
I'm pretty sure
my ears mixed up.
New Avengers was like 07-ish.
That could be.
And I think Century was 2000 or like very, very early 2000s.
So we also have to acknowledge that there was another actor who played Venom in the movies from that 70s show. Our good friend.
Topher
Grace. And we'd say Grace was not how he prepared the character, but
no.
he tried.
To be fair, let's just... But it turns out Sam Raimi hated Venom with a passion and did not want it to...
shoehorned him in, right?
Yeah.
The studio made him put him in.
No, I feel like the studio wanted to have him have a bigger role, obviously, because of how much of a huge Spider-Man villain he is. But Raimi hates Venom, so he just shoehorned him at the end. And gave us Red Foreman as Eddie Brock.
Yes. So we tried. It was... and one thing that I thought was interesting, because his name's Eddie, he was a young guy. That made sense a little bit. He was Peter's age. But I so much more appreciate what they've done with the new movie.
As does Todd McFarlane.
Yes. So having Eddie as the reporter, who is, in this case, doing webcam casts, and that was pretty exciting. And I like what they did with him. Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
So expectations or things you've heard about the Venom 2 movie. What do you know?
Andy Serkis is directing.
Oh, that's going to be that's good.
Carnage is going to be an antagonist, maybe not the main antagonist. Mm-hmm. That is mostly a rumor at this point. I've also heard rumors that a member of the Life Foundation symbiotes that in the comics were actually forcibly born from Venom.
Okay.
Scream might be.
Yeah, I can see that.
Antagonist. That would actually be pretty dope.
So he might have a whole host of villains to contend with.
And what's her name? The actress who played Anne Wang actually said she is willing to play She-Venom in a movie.
Oh, that would be very cool.
Do you know what I honestly want them to do? Because knowing this whole going on.
Yes. You're talking about the Sony,
yeah.
Spider-Man, Marvel, Disney custody battle.
Yeah. Because we may never get Venom in the MCU. I feel like they
may never get Spider-Man in the MCU.
Yeah,
anymore.
Yeah. I feel like they should do the whole thing with. I can't remember if Anne had cancer or not. No, it's Eddie that had cancer.
Oh yes, Eddie has cancer. Yep.
But Anne just. Oh, and being a reporter and reporting on gang violence
mm-hmm.
or whatever and getting shot. Eddie using the symbiote to help her.
Mm-hmm.
She kills everyone and then kills herself.
Whoa.
Anne Wang kills herself in the comics after having the Venom symbiote.
So that's your generation, Reed. I don't remember those.
That was in the 90s, my guy.
Yeah, that's the era I took off, the decade I took off or took a break. What I do remember is that the second person to wear the Venom, well, third because Peter Parker did, was Mac Gargan, who we knew as the Scorpion,
Oof,
and he
yeah.
bought it or he was, let me see, it was an auction. Eddie auctioned it off, and a
Not
criminal
true,
mastermind
yeah.
bought it, and then
For
Mac
his
ended up
son,
wearing it.
who
Right.
was just a total
Was too
pansy.
weak. What was the crime boss's name? Do you remember?
No, I don't. And
Um,
yeah, he got it for his son Angelo. I
Yes,
think his
yes.
first name was Angelo.
I think you're right.
And Venom actually unbonded with him in midair. Yeah,
Yes.
because he was such a pansy.
Yes.
And
So
he
that's
fell to his
how
death.
McDonald Mac Gargan ended up with him, and he wore him throughout the Dark Avengers.
I totally
pretending
forgot
to be
that
Spider-Man.
Mac Gargan's
his first
full
name's
name.
McDonald,
Actually,
of
that's
course,
the
yeah.
first time I've heard.
Oh, there you have it.
Oof.
So
yeah.
they brought him in at the end credits of Spider-Man: Homecoming. So, he's there in the MCU. Well, he may not be, but
Yeah.
that's something
Well,
we might see.
If you think about it, at least nowadays, 90% of Spider-Man's rogue gallery is the Marvel Universe's rogue gallery.
That's true.
But
And
because they're mostly considered Spider-Man villains, they have to be packaged with them,
Yes.
which is horse crap.
you got it. Well, they have to let him be the Scorpion first before
Yeah.
we even see that. But that's an interesting run. So in Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers, they called him Spider-Man, but I don't think anyone was fooled by that.
And Dark Avengers was where we got Hulk's son Sakaara's Hulk.
Yep.
And then Daken as Wolverine.
Yes.
Now,
Do you know
Moonstruck was Captain Marvel.
Yes. And
who else?
a Bullseye played Hawkeye.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Bullseye.
I thought that was very clever.
Yeah,
because of his accuracy. And
Aren't
deadly.
they brothers in the comics?
No, that's Trickshot. You're thinking of.
Right, Trickshot and Hawkeye.
Trickshot is Barney Barton. There's a name for you.
Oh, God, that's right. Oh, God, I'd love to see Trickshot in the MCU going forward.
Barney Barton. Clint would knock him out. So the other thing I was going to ask is about our friend McDonald Mac Gargan as the Scorpion. He was
seriously
already
weird.
scarred by the explosion on the boat, right? We saw him in the end credit. Didn't he have scars of his face?
Yes, oh my God, that's right. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, so that, and him and the Vulture, we already got them.
Mm-hmm.
It's rumored that Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio might have survived, so we're on our way to a Sinister Six if we ever get it.
And that, if you think about it, that's kind of what the third movie set up.
Yeah, I hope they can pull it off. And
Plus-
I had heard that not Tobey Maguire, who was our current Spider-Man,
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland had asked for Jason Momoa to be Kraven the Hunter, which would have been great casting.
Even though I love him as Arthur Curry, I can just picture him with a Russian accent, and it's
he'd be so
incredible.
perfect. And think how many people have jumped DC to Marvel and back and forth. So you've got your J. Jonah Jameson became
Yep.
Commissioner Gordon, and you've got
And he got jacked for that role.
right.
I feel
Batman
like
himself became the Vulture.
Yep.
And let's not even talk about what Ryan Reynolds has been up to.
Yeah. No. Do you know what I loved about Michael Keaton's Vulture? I was legitimately terrified of him outside of the costume.
Right, he didn't need the costume
Like-
to scare the crap out of you.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'm
With the
I'm
goggles
surprised I
and the
didn't piss
wings,
myself.
it was even more impressive. But he has
Yeah.
a menacing face, and when he turned around in that car to confront Peter about his daughter and him being Spider-Man, we were all scared for Peter.
Yeah. I'm surprised people didn't just piss
In
themselves.
fact, when he opened that door,
Oh,
when he went to
Michael
the date,
Keaton's smile alone is
Yeah.
terrifying.
So he's
I
far
love
better as a
him,
villain than a.
but yeah,
This has been fun. I got to get back to the comic book shop. So.
yeah. And I will be taking over for the rest of the time as
All
the
right.
sole whatever. So nice to have you on.
Thank you, sir. It's always good to be here.
Of course.
All right, take care.
You too. Well, that was fun, and now time to get back to Carnage. The reason why I'm talking about Carnage is because of the most recent run. Well, actually, technically stemmed from the Venom run done by Donny Cates. Absolute Carnage. Cates himself, I'm pretty sure, called it the Avengers Endgame, well, Infinity War / Endgame of the comics universe. So that's pretty baller. An interesting fact about Carnage is that his first guest appearance was in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, number 359, and his first full appearance was Spider-Man Volume 1, 360. The people who created Carnage said that their original character idea was, what if they gave the Venom symbiote to the Joker? So that alone should terrify you. At one point in the 1990s, bit after the introduction of Carnage, the Carnage symbiote bonded itself to, I think at the time it was Ben Reilly, the clone of Spider-Man, who at that time was going by the Sensational Spider-Man because Peter Parker had retired for a bit and decided to have a happy life with MJ. Either way, Spider-Carnage decided to destroy reality itself. Wow. At one point, this was also in the 90s, because the 90s were a very weird time for comics. Carnage, Cletus Cassidy figured out, that he decided to send the Carnage symbiote through the internet, because that is apparently a thing, and kill a guy. Just for fun. At one point, I don't remember if this was the 90s or not, Carnage kidnapped Venom, Eddie Brock, and tortured him by chaining him over some fire and hitting him with sonic blasts for fun. I'm gonna set my phone down so I can read the. Okay, that's a bit low. What else? Oh yeah. And at one point, I think it was the run after at Maximum Carnage. Carnage decided to, just for really no reason, put pieces of his symbiote, of the symbiote, on dead bodies, and that caused Spider-Man to think that he killed Carnage, which, because it's Peter Parker and he has this whole thing against killing, kind of screwed with him for a bit. In the Maximum Carnage event, he went on a mass homicide as a warm-up to fighting Spider-Man, so that's pretty messed up. Another truly twisted thing that Cletus Cassidy in the Carnage symbiote decided to do one morning was go through the phone book and kill someone because they had a funny name. That someone was Gunny Stein. When he was locked up after, whatever time, after the Maximum Carnage event, he decided to, show his psychiatrist or whatever his memories of, killing his grandmother and by pushing her down the stairs and killing the dog. I don't remember if those are the exact memories. Either way, being exposed to that drove the psychiatrist crazy, which led the psychiatrist to then attack the guards, well, attack and kill/eat them when they were trying to get him away from Carnage. So that just shows how much of a demented mind Cletus Cassidy's is. And before Cletus Cassidy became Carnage, he decided to burn down the orphanage he was in. Like I said, he murdered his grandmother. He actually pushed her down the stairs, and then was saddened by the fact that he'd have to wait hours for his mom to get back to see what he did. Another messed up thing is the Carnage USA event in 2011, which basically was him infecting an entire town in some, like a rural town. I forget which one it was. What's truly messed up about this is that he infected a kid, a baby. He infected a goddamn baby. Let me see. That's all I can remember about the Carnage USA event. He infected, in the MC2 universe, I'm pretty sure it's the MC2, Carnage decided to infect Peter Parker's son, Ben Parker. This was after Peter had retired, and after this was during the time when his daughter Mayday Parker had the took up the mantle of Spider-Man. But the MC2 universe is incredible, and should be. It should have more prevalence than it does, mostly because Black Panther's son, T'Chaka, named after T'Challa's father, T'Chaka, is Bronze Tiger, which was going to be the name of Black Panther after the Black Panther political party sprouted and, well, happened. Well, we all know the rest. At one point it was the Deadpool versus Carnage event, because, yes, that was a thing. Carnage just decided to kill a restaurant full of people for no real reason. And another thing he did during the Maximum Carnage storyline is, with the help of Shriek, who for some reason was in love with him, that's another thing I don't really want to get into, turned New York City into a hotbed of rage. In a hotbed of rage. Now, to talk about the more recent storyline, Absolute Carnage. Basically, this cult, basically in Donny Cates' run on Venom, he decided to tweak, he decided to retcon the whole Clintar racist story just a little bit, and decided that, one, the symbiotes were originally a creation from a being known as Null, god of the symbiotes. And the first symbiote was a sword that he used to kill the Celestials, that would, after a while, be known as the All Black. And it turns out that and long story involving him perfecting the symbiotes, he found out that he essentially had a hive mind to like scope out the world or whatever. Anyway, after the symbiotes decided to, well, the symbiotes got a taste of the real world and were free of Null's hold. They decided to imprison him in a cage, which they called a Clintar. Thus, that is why in the Planet Venom, well, the Venom Space Knight event where, Flash Thompson went to space and discovered the planet of the symbiotes, which we now know to be Null's cage, as Clintar. Turns out Clintar is not the name of the planet, but the symbiote's word for prison or cage. Either way, after Carnage after Carnage got back from space, actually crashed back into the atmosphere and was very severely burned. And I think it was after Bob Reynolds' Sentry threw him up into space, and also I think after Carnage USA, which took place in 2011, a cult worshipping Null decided to resurrect Carnage and basically turn him into the Prophet of the Void, basically what our world was before the Celestials turned space into the universe. And he has a bit of the Grendel symbiote, which is the symbiote dragon that Thor, I can't remember if it's Thor or Odin, fought back in the Viking era. Anyway, his lackeys told him about the codexes. The codexes are essentially the remnants of a symbiote that people get after a symbiote has been attached to them. And he absorbs them by ripping out their spines. Well, he doesn't absorb them by ripping out their spines. He can absorb them when he rips their spines out, whatever. So basically he decided to go on a quest to get all the codices so that he can talk to Null. And on his way to talk to Null, on his journey, he decided to infect Norman Osborn. In fact, I'm pretty sure, in Absolute Carnage issue 1, he infiltrates the raft, and with little Carnage maggots or whatever, he decides to infect a whole prison ward in order to get essentially mindless Carnage lackeys. I forget what they're called. And he infected Norman Osborn, who at that time thought he was Cletus Cassidy because he used the Carnage symbiote alongside the Goblin Serum to become the Red Goblin, and it was this whole thing. The Absolute Carnage storyline, one of the more recent things that he has done is kill Alejandra Jones, one of the Spirits of Vengeance, to get her codex. And that actually resulted in a pretty badass Carnage, what has been dubbed the Symbiote of Vengeance. Basically, Carnage got this this Carnage cycle. He could control Hellfire. It was really cool. Go out and read by the Absolute Carnage story comics if you can find them. In the Miles Morales, the Spider-Man Miles Morales Absolute Carnage tie-in. With the help of Eddie Brock's Venom, Miles was trying to fight off all of the mindless Carnage hounds. That's what I'm going to call them. And while trying to essentially protect people from Carnage, he gets infected by Carnage and becomes a bit of a mindless slave to the Carnage hive. And he gets like 4 arms, and it's really cool. It's also a shame that Miles Morales had to get his first symbiote suit that way. The the Absolute Carnage storyline really is going to cement him as what should have been since the 90s. Him being Marvel's greatest villain. Anyway, that is all I have for now. See you later.